All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is welcome to the Committee on Public Finance. This meeting is a result of a letter written to us by the Coalition for Inclusive Impact, signed by Mr. Sanjay Vignaraja and Ms. Dilakshani Angunuwala, requesting a time to discuss matters related to economic inclusion and civil society concerns. So we have about an hour for this discussion. What we will do is we will ask each one of you, or rather groups that you represent, to very briefly in 5 minutes or so make your main point. There is no need to sort of say the same thing. You know, if somebody earlier had said what you wanted to say, you can say something else so that we get a collection of ideas. So before we do that, could you please identify yourselves for the record so we know who you are? Is Mr. Sanjay Vignaraja here?
He's out of the country. I'm here representing CII and I'm from
Okay.
I'm here representing Verite Research, and my name is.
My name is Yolani Fernando, Executive Director, Arutha.
My name is Megha Pereira, and I'm a representative of Center for a Smart Future and Colombo Urban Lab.
I'm Ranmali Abesekar and I'm representing the Celine Group.
I'm Gayani Hurule from Learn Asia.
I'm Madhushan Sindhanayaka representing #Generation.
I'm Sarani Gunatilaka representing #Generation.
I'm Yasmin Raji from Advocata Institute.
From the Advocata Institute.
I'm Rayan Nadesaraja. I'm representing CII.
I'm Chaturu Javardhana, representing Center for Poverty Analysis.
I'm Charudatta Ekanayaka and I represent UNESCO in Sri Lanka.
I'm Nadishani Pereira, representing Justice for All movement.
I'm Chatumali Kalwarachi, representing Transparency Russia, Sri Lanka.
Right. So, welcome once again. We just want to make a comment before we start. We like to do this. We would like to engage civil society, but the request this time came pretty late. So, even though you wanted a pre-budget meeting, the budget had already been prepared by then. So, this year, if you are interested in continuing this, we probably would perhaps need to meet a lot earlier than this. So later on this year, around August of next year, perhaps would be the right time to meet so that you can have this noted in your calendars. Right. I'll let you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
You can use any language you wish to.
Okay. These we have some. We just thought this meeting we can because at Verite Research we are trying to analyze the budget that was released, and as a preliminary some findings from the budget that we found, and I thought we can. We thought it'll be good to explain that to the committee, and these are like especially I want to talk about 3 points regarding the budget transparency, because the budget. Or the overall public finance, there's a lot of emphasis on transparency, and we saw Public Financial Management Act also came, which is to improve transparency. And we still see there's some lags in terms of transparency. So one is the reduced availability of data. So what we see is that in the budget that was presented, the budget speech, it had a summary of the budget, which include the revenue, the expenditure of the government. And when we see these numbers, it's mostly in an aggregated form. So, for example, it is given as taxes on goods and services, taxes on income taxes, but it does not have a breakdown of those numbers. and the government's main policy document, which gives that breakdown, is the budget estimates. And when we compare these numbers with the budget estimates, it does not really tally. So what we really think is, okay, the budget speech is the finalized numbers that's released to the public and the parliament, and we would like to know a disaggregated data, because we want to see if some numbers are different from the budget estimates. How did this number increase, and why what is the reason, like what is the breakdown, because especially the Ministry of Finance would have had a disaggregated data, which it should have aggregated it later on. So we would like to know like these kinds of transparency issues, because it looks like the budget which was finally presented to the parliament is in a way hidden when these numbers are not given the detailed breakdowns, and it makes researchers like us also difficult to analyze these numbers. And also we just wanted to mention that the website of the Treasury does not provide us with the detailed budget estimates. It only provides us the activity budgets in the budget estimates. So even the budget estimates that's given doesn't have a full breakdown, so we don't know exactly, the public doesn't know exactly where the money is being going. And secondly, we also wanted to raise about the numbers, the macro numbers that is given in the budget. So according to the Public Financial Management Act, these macro numbers are initially produced in the fiscal strategy documents. And when we look at those numbers and when we try to reconcile that with the budget speech, again we see the numbers don't match. For example, the GDP numbers in the fiscal strategy document mentions at 8.5% as the nominal GDP growth, and it gives a breakdown of inflation and GDP growth. But in the document, in the budget and fiscal management report that is released, we do not find such breakdowns of GDP and inflation numbers. And also when we compare with the budget speech, it looks like it is expecting a GDP growth of 8%, as opposed to 8.5%, which is mentioned in the fiscal strategy. So there's conflicting views on which document numbers to be for us to even use to analyze the budget. And thirdly, we also wanted to raise about these revenue proposals that's mentioned in the budget speech. Again, it does not have a estimate. So like these revenue proposal, let's say the threshold for VAT was reduced by, but because of reduction, how much is the revenue the government is able to increase is not given. So most of the revenue proposals doesn't have a number that backs it up. And we assume that most of these numbers should come with extensive, well-formulated policies, should have a methodology that explains from where these numbers are coming from. So, so having these transparencies would really would be a good thing for us to also analyze the budget, and as a public, everyone should be knowing how well the money is well spent. That's it from my end. Thanks.
Who's next?
Chairman, thank you to the committee for its time. I have two main points that I will make. One is really
You're from Arutha, right?
From Arutha, yeah. One is really a question or a clarification, because there was, in the budget speech, it was mentioned that there will be a phasing out of para tariffs, but we do have a question in that regard, because revenue estimates from 2026 to 2028 continue to show CES, PAL, SEL contributing 67% of revenue, so 67% of tax revenue coming from trade, from PAL, CES and SEL. So we have a clarification on that we would like to have on, because if the revenue estimates and the budget proposal don't match, that is a clarification. The other point we would like to make as Arutha is about the subsidy that the government is proposing to provide to plantation companies with regards to worker wages. So there's a 200 rupee attendance allowance that has been proposed by the government. And we would like to first oppose this on the grounds that government subsidizing the private sector when the private sector should be, paying living wage for their workers anyway, calls into question a lot of things, because why specifically that the plantation sector is being given this subsidy, that is one question. And the other is, of course, the mechanism by which this 200 rupees is, being proposed. Now, there are quite a few sort of gray areas here. One is that I think it was told that the allowance will be given for attendance for 25 days. Now, that is not practical, because in a given month, it is normally sort of 18 to maybe maximum 22 days that a worker might actually work in the plantation sector, and that is due to the sort of the varying levels of, crop. So then how will this 25-day, how did the government come up with this 25-day idea, first of all? The other is there isn't really any transparency on whether the Planters Association has actually agreed to this. There is already a 200 rupee attendance allowance that is given, and this is supposed to be in addition to that. But is there any assurance from the Planters Association that they will continue to give that attendance allowance if the government is, providing this subsidy? Because there are no legal, there hasn't been a collective agreement, I think, since 2019. So there is no legal, barrier to the Planters Association actually lapsing on the 200 rupee attendance allowance from their end as well. And I think, sort of on the operational side of things, we would like to sort of point out that there isn't an existing mechanism by which the government can provide this. If the government is doing that, they will have to rely on information provided by the plantation companies. And, is there a mechanism to triangulate the information given from the companies? That is also a question. If it is cash, is it cash handed to workers, or is the money going to be provided to the companies themselves? Is there an independent way to verify whether the companies are actually paying the attendance allowance afterwards? So there's a question of monitoring and evaluation there as well. And I think there's also a question of the allocation itself, which is about 5 billion. And I think when you there are varying estimates of the number of workers in that sector. It can be anything from 150,000 to 230,000, but according to our calculations, the current allocation would only cover, about 83,000 workers for the year if you were to actually pay out that attendance allowance monthly. So then and that is not accounting for any administrative costs of the mechanism as well. I do have a few more points on that, and any clarifications, I'd be happy to providing clarifications on that. But those are the 2 points that Arutha would like to bring to the table. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Good afternoon, Chair. Just to remind the committee that I'm representing the Center for a Smart Future and Colombo Urban Lab, which is housed under the Center for the Smart Future. And today I'll be talking about 2 points that both deal with the impact of this budget on the urban poor, which is points that we have seen through our work on urbanization. The first point is to do with social protection, and we welcome the approach to Aswasuma, especially the focus on disability, but this does not change the fact that the urban poor has not been adequately covered by Aswasuma, and this is something that the social protection strategy document also recognizes in light of the economic crisis. Furthermore, allocations for nutrition interventions such as Triposha and vouchers for expectant mothers have not been expanded, and this is a unfortunate opportunity that is missed to improve the nutrition and health of the urban poor in particular, particularly as child nutrition indicators have decreased this year. And I'd just like to also state that social protection is not just about cash transfers, but that we have seen how these interventions like school meal programs and nutritional vouchers can significantly impact working mothers, particularly even increasing female labor force participation. My second point is on urban development, and for this point, I'm really drawing from this report, which was conducted by by Colombo Urban Lab, and this is a review of the urban regeneration program, and I'm happy to table this report. And here I would also like to draw the committee's attention to the budget allocation for urban development, in particular capital expenditure, where 20 million has been allocated for capital expenditure on urban development, out of which, 20 billion, out of which 15 billion has been allocated for the urban regeneration project. Now, we find this troubling from an accountability point of view, particularly because this project has had an unsuccessful track record since 2010. Between 2010 and 2018, according to our report, the government spent 70 billion on this project. That is twice the cost of the Mattala airport and 4 times the cost of the Lotus Tower. After 2018, the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank provided a loan of 200 million USD. So in total, this project has so far cost a total of 700 million USD, which is very expensive for public housing. Furthermore, we can see that these expenses have frequently been misused. So I'll give an example of an apartment in Colombague, Mawatha, which is also mentioned in the budget speech as a site to be restarted through this budget allocation. In an audit report in 2023, the audit report states that this Colombague Mawatha apartment with 715 units, construction started in 2014. And 10 years later, this apartment is yet to be built. Construction stalled in 2020, at which point 1.2 billion had already been incurred. And the audit report goes on to say this could be considered a useless expense. And many of the sites mentioned in the budget speech have similar stories, many of which are detailed in this report. The second point I want to raise is the broken financial model that the urban regeneration program has furthered. It was supposed to self-fund by leasing liberated lands, so relocating urban poor in Colombo and leasing the liberated lands at 2 million a perch. But again, audit reports have consistently flagged that investment has not materialized. A survey that we did in the report suggested that majority of these lands are vacant. When they are used as car parks or garbage dumps. So again, the question of why people were relocated at gunpoint in 2010 and 2013 is really a question that should be answered. And we say that borrowed money should not be furthered if the financial model is not going to be changed. My last point is on the inclusion and the cost that the urban poor has borne. But these are lifelong residents of Colombo, registered voters in Colombo, 20,000 of whom are now residing in these UDA high-rise apartments. Many of them have signed forms in languages they could not understand. They have often been evicted. Their homes have been destroyed. But they have objectively had a deterioration in quality of life, as our research shows. Majority of them preferred their previous residence as opposed to the current residents. Majority of them have less infrastructure than they did in their previous residence. My point is that this has not delivered the promised benefits, and it has also resulted in the segregation of the urban poor. So because it is not a financially feasible model, and because it has not created the social equity that it was supposed to, I urge the committee to take this matter up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Ranmali from Celine Group. Thank you, Honourable Chair and members of the Committee of Public Finance. I appreciate the opportunity to provide high-level comments on the Sri Lanka 2026 budget, specifically through the lens of fair trade, handloom, and reusable period products, 2 sectors that are important to us at Celine. The handloom sector is largely an informal industry that plays a pivotal role in the rural economy, especially in supporting women who participate in much of it. Within this sector, there are 3 main segments: weaving centers operated by provincial councils, individual informal weavers, formal private enterprises connected to domestic and global markets. Despite its cultural and economic significance, the handloom and craft industry continues to face many challenges due to policymakers' lack of understanding of its nature. While proposals such as the removal of paratariffs and SCL cess are a step in the right direction, and the reduction of VAT SSCL thresholds formalizes a larger SME space, I humbly urge you to consider the implications for the broader SME sector. Broadening the VAT base is essential, but the adverse impacts on struggling consumers should be weighed and a reduction on VAT rate should be considered. The economy is emerging from a deflationary period and the government should be careful not to shrink the domestic consumer market many SMEs depend on. The added statutory administrative burden on SMEs is a hidden cost to the wider economy. Sri Lanka already has an overly complicated tax system. Making it administratively easier is essential to helping SMEs remain competitive. The handloom sector in particular finds it increasingly difficult to remain viable by selling fabric alone. Value addition through the creation of finished products is essential to sustain livelihoods, enhance competitiveness, and preserve this traditional craft. However, the 18% VAT places an undue burden on the industry and threatens its long-term sustainability. The nearly twofold increase in the private sector minimum wage over 9 months, along with potential demand contraction from an expanded indirect tax base, puts formal SMEs at a disadvantage compared to informal sectors. While leveling the playing field takes time, squeezing SMEs' margins leaves them vulnerable and on the brink of closure. Menstrual products are not fully tax exempt. Only locally produced pads are VAT exempt, but total tax on sanitary pads exceed 20%, worsening period poverty. While 1.5 billion rupees allocated for sanitary napkins for school students is helpful, we must also support all menstruators and promote sustainable reusable products. Currently, this 1.5 billion rupees mainly supports single-use plastic, non-biodegradable products, which is costly and environmentally damaging. Considering the 5 billion allocated for waste management, adopting sustainable options could reduce long-term costs and environmental impact. Currently, the Sri Lanka Standards Institution does not have a national standard for reusable menstrual products despite the presence of such products in the market. Safety remains paramount, so please provide us, the manufacturer, with a standard to meet, enabling us to fully utilize the targeted subsidies proposed in this budget. We are already in production aiming to diversify and adapt to rapidly changing economic conditions. We appreciate the ongoing support for SMEs to access export markets through grants for international expos and events. However, this has been a long-standing initiative, and given past expenditures, has there been an impact study on these outcomes? Why haven't SME exports surged despite these programs? Are there issues with grant allocation, or are these proposals merely theoretical? Additionally, do SME value chains lack the competitiveness needed for international markets despite government-funded opportunities? Therefore, we would like to make the following recommendations. 1. Reevaluate the VAT rate, considering reducing the rate to mitigate deflationary pressures in the domestic market. 2. Earmark a portion of the budget to simplify, not just digitize, statutory and regulatory compliance. Let's not make doing business a bureaucratic nightmare. 3. 18% VAT on artisan goods threatens the sector's viability. We recommend a VAT exemption or reduced rate for verified handloom products to protect livelihoods, empower rural women, and preserve cultural heritage. 4. Mandate national standards for reusable products. 5. Mandate a significant portion of the 1.5 billion menstrual welfare allocation to be usable for reusable, sustainable menstrual products. 6. Review the total tax burden on all menstrual products. The committee must review the entire tax structure on these essential goods, not just the token VAT exemption on one category. And 7. Before allocating more funds to SME export support, the committee should conduct an independent audit and impact assessment of programs from the last 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Gaini Hurulle, and I'm here representing Learnasia, and I will be speaking on the allocation for social protection. The citizens' budget indicates that 837 billion rupees has been allocated for social protection. This accounts for 9.3% of the total budget, which is substantial and a step in the right direction when we look at the increasing allocation towards social protection. However, what is clear from successive budgets and also annual reports is that the expenditure on social protection is concentrated in two areas. First, on government pensions and gratuity. The allocation for pensions and gratuity for public sector workers has accounted for 565 billion rupees in this year's budget. This is 68% of the allocation for social protection. Given how this only benefits a small group of individuals, there is a need to think through how to rationalize this in the long term. And it is going to be a difficult one, but possibly a more pragmatic way forward would be to think about requiring contributory schemes for new recruits, which is not something that is going to reflect in our accounts in the short term, but hopefully in the long term, allowing for also better benefits and more adequate benefits for the new recruits in the long run, and also opening up the fiscal space to spend on better support for those in the informal sector and other parts of the economy, given the greater fiscal space. The second largest share of social protection spending goes towards the Aswasuma cash transfer program. 151 billion rupees has been allocated towards this program for the next year for the family-based cash transfers. This is about 18% of the total budget for social protection and about 1% of the total budget. 2026 is a significant year for Aswasuma because it represents 3 years since the program has started. And when the program was conceptualized, it was envisaged that all the people who initially got onto the program would have exited by 2026, June 2026, if they were not recertified as needing benefits. But 3 years on, there is a need to rethink and reassess whether the cash transfer program has been successful in, one, helping people manage their cost of living, and second, whether it has helped move people out of poverty. Another element that I would like to bring is that a large focus of the Aswasama program, that in discourse and also budget allocation, has been on the cash transfer program. But little attention has been given to the empowerment program, which ideally should have gone hand in hand. We see this reflected in the budget as well. Even this year, the allocation towards the economic empowerment program has been 4.2 billion rupees, which is less than 3% of the allocation towards the cash transfer program. So there is a need to rethink of whether you can increase the budget allocation towards economic empowerment for the Aswasama beneficiaries, so that you can think about possibly better jobs, capital to start new businesses, expand current businesses for these beneficiaries. The budget also speaks of several different initiatives, namely the National Poverty Eradication Program and Prajashakti. But the specific mechanisms of work and the complementarity to the existing programs are still unclear. So it would be good to know how all these sort of work together and help empower beneficiaries. In sum, spending on social protection is important to protect people at different points of their life, to deal with different shocks, but it is key that we think about which shocks we deal with and where we spend our money, especially when there is a significant fiscal deficit. And I'll stop there.
Good afternoon, Chair and the committee. Thank you for the opportunity. So on behalf of Hashtag Generation, our concerns are primarily on digitalization. Whilst we commend government's commitment towards digitalization and modernization, which is an essential component of, economic development, we emphasize on the fact that any attempt or any programs for digitalization should be inclusive. So in this regard, my first point actually leads to persons with disabilities, and in the funds that has been allocated to digital ministry, we don't see a particular budget line focusing on assistive technologies. Now in Sri Lanka, we see that there is a big problem that we do not have up-to-date data on persons with disabilities. The latest census that we find on that is in 2012. So one is we are going forward with digitalization, not even knowing who's going to be excluded and the numbers. And two, we have not paid attention to the fact that the moment we digitalize, a huge group of our own society will be sometimes restricted from all the benefits that we are going to give through digitalization, and even be left out from getting those services in a non-digital environment, because we are going towards digitalization. So we emphasize on the need for assistive technologies and specific fund allocation. But as a starting point, we suggest that the government first conduct census to understand the numbers and the varying categories of persons with disabilities, because that is not just about just physical disabilities that we talk about. So it can be of varying nature. Geographically, there might be barriers when it comes to digitalization. So that could also be counted when it comes to this specific aspect of digitalization. So we urge the government to take note of that and address that in the budget also as a specific budget line, because that will take a substantial amount of funding. Secondly, and we also want to mention that we have already made a submission on this through Verite Research, particularly focusing on the need to address this in the budget. Secondly, we want to talk about the much celebrated digital ID. Yes, as hashtag generation, we do see the need. However, we think that it's important to take a cautious approach towards this, particularly because we have a law that is valid as of today, the Personal Data Protection Act, and it specifically provides for the regulation of processing of special categories of data, which includes the type of data that is going to be included in the digital ID. However, we are going towards with the digital ID without the Data Protection Authority in its full force. So then there is a problem. Are we going ahead with a policy that contradicts the existing law as of today? So we once again, and also the PDPA as of today provides that it would be the Personal Data Protection, the Data Protection Authority that will prescribe the processes for processing special categories of data. But again, we don't have the authority, but we are saying by 2026 third quarter, we will have a digital ID. Then that's problematic, because then we are violating our own law and trying to go ahead with a policy. So we urge the government also to take note of that, because if we go ahead with a policy that does not comply with the law, then that is problematic, 1A. 2, that will violate people's right and safeguards towards processing of data, because we are not following the process that we thought is ideal. So we specifically urge on that. And secondly, on a second level, we also think we applaud the government for recognizing the need for digital literacy and awareness. We see that there is a budget line in the budget under Digital Ministry that provides for advancing digital skills. However, the concern that we have is we only see a capital budget allocation. But as we all know, advancing digital skills and capacity building is not going to be something that's going to be a one-off thing. So if at all, we need to think of a sustainable mechanism that could sustain. So obviously, we need to think of recurrent expenditure that we will have to continuously spend under the digital ministry if we are thinking of a digitalized Sri Lanka. So we think it's important that budget lines are practical and also sustainable, because otherwise we'll be incurring or spending so much of money without sustainability, and that is something that we think we should not be doing. Third and last point, we know that the government appointed a committee to amend the Online Safety Act, and then the government also said OSA will fall under the Digital Ministry. And we are all waiting here seeing, okay, what's the committee is going to do, what will be the commission like after the amendments, but we don't see anything with regard to that in the budget. So then we have a problem, what is government's plan as to the Online Safety Act? Because if we are talking about digitalization, whether we like it or not, again, online safety will be paramount. So then aren't we serious about, rethinking the OSA and going forward about is a question that we have. So we also place that before the committee, because if the government is serious about going ahead with that, we think this budget will also need a line on way forward with OSA, because that's another commission. So we will stop with these three major points and leave them at the good hands of the committee, and we hope necessary steps will be taken. Thank you.
Then we have Justice for All. And who else? UNESCO, Transparency International.
Can Advocata?
I'm sorry,
That's
Advocata,
fine.
I missed you.
That's okay. So I'm representing the Advocata Institute. We'll keep our intervention quite brief. Firstly, just some observations. Advocata would like to commend the government's efforts in reducing the VAT threshold. We think that that's really good and a step towards reducing distortions in the market. Secondly, I mean, almost in like a relation to the VAT issue, we'd also encourage the government to consider to remove unnecessary VAT exemptions, because that then continues to maintain distortions, price distortions, when in reality, I mean, like even if you take, for example, the protein market, chicken and those kinds of stuff, they do have VAT that is applicable, but fish does not. So some of those distortions, I mean, as much as you are reducing the VAT threshold, you also want to consider some of those policies, whether you want to remove those VAT exemptions unnecessarily, and sort of instead, if the worry is then in unaffordability, then to replace that with a cash transfer. That is Advocata's suggestion. Something else which I think we had actually communicated in our public budget proposals for this year, which I know right now, because the budget speech is over, bringing it up would be, less of, I mean, it's less impactful, but, we still want to talk about it in this house, because when we look at the citizens' budget, in our research, we've found that the BIMSAVIA program, it does have its inefficiencies that needs to be resolved, and as much as 0.73 billion for this year has been allocated for the program, there is much to be examined about how this program has been carried out. So for example, since its inception or introduction in 1998, which is now more than 2 decades ago, the implementation of the program has been very weak. So around 1.06 million titles have been issued out of an estimated 16 million parcels, which means that the pace of titling is very slow, and that the roots of it is because of multiple reasons, which I will not go into too much of detail, but in some it is because firstly the Act has its issues. It does not address certain issues such as co-ownership, what to do when it comes to religious land issues, and things like that. There's also issues in the sense that budgets being allocated but have been underutilized. So why is that happening? And also, in addition to the fact that there is a lot of vacancies of titling land surveyors, that issue also needs to be resolved. So it's just something that we are currently in the process of doing our research on, but perhaps something that is a longer term reform that the House should probably pay attention to, and we'd be happy to talk about it further. I'd sort of give the floor to my colleague.
We'd also like to endorse the point raised by Arutha in terms of phasing out para-tariffs. Just to give a little bit of context, even though the phasing out of CES and PAL was supposed to start
Cannot hear properly. Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me better now? Yeah, even though the phasing out of CES and PAL was supposed to start in April of 2023, we don't really see that being reflected in revenue. CES was supposed to be phased out starting of April 2023 in the next 3 years, PAL in the next 5 years. Like highlighted by Arutha, we don't really see that being reflected in revenue. So the budget proposed a plan and to implement a plan and a time frame. So our proposal really is to include a transparent progress update to be included in this phasing out plan, and that is really our addition to phasing out of para-tariffs.
Okay, we have 2 more left.
Thank you for this opportunity. Considering the role of the Committee on Public Finance to scrutinize how public funds are being spent.
You are representing?
As Justice for All.
Okay, thank you.
So is there a review being done on how effectively state institutions and ministries have spent their current or the previous year budget as a precondition to allocating money in this budget? Are the audits being reviewed, institutional performance being reviewed, allegations of waste, fraud or corruption being reviewed, or irrespective of how you have performed, you know that you're getting your allocation, then there's is no incentive for these institutions to uphold integrity or effectiveness or accountability. So maybe it's a suggestion if it's not done, and some of the points raised by my colleagues show that some very problematic projects are being refunded here. So that shows that there is no review mechanism. So we'd like to praise that there. And the next one is a suggestion to enhance transparency and accountability and to minimize the corruption vulnerabilities in the way the country is run. A very important change would be to institutionalize public participation and public consultation and citizen-led monitoring of processes involving public funds. Now, my suggestion is that this budget should institutionalize that, and it is not at all an expensive thing. Now, for example, the government action plan to implement the governance reforms agreed upon in the IMF agreement, there should be a citizen consultation element there, a committee, an advisory committee at least, because there are a whole host of laws being reformed and other critical changes. Introducing participatory budgeting and participatory governance at the provincial level, local government level, divisional district secretariats. Then also allocating money to enhance the proactive disclosure of information according to our Right to Information Act by public institutions, which is pathetically low. For example, they need funding to start their own websites, to give this information proactively, to have information campaigns, so that all information according to the Act are shared with people to minimize opacity, and also in terms of mega projects like the Aswasuma and other development projects, to infuse citizen-led monitoring or civil society-led monitoring, citizen scorecard, grievance mechanism, feedback loops, public consultations, and also opening up some of the audit findings for public hearings through the committees in the parliament committees. These all the civil society can facilitate. My request is that it be acknowledged and included in the budget so that we do this system change that we are talking about. Next, basically, is there a funding allocated for the full functioning of the independent budget office, at least going ahead? We can see the need for it when we hear about the discrepancies in numbers here, etc. And the other one is the public debt management office, whether there's funding allocated for the full functioning of these two critical institutions that have been introduced as part of the system change or governance reforms. And next, my point is for the governance diagnostic reforms that we are obliged and agreed to do as per the IMF agreement and the system change agenda. Is there a fund being allocated for that, for example, to implement the beneficial ownership register, conflict of interest register, and to really gear up the bribery commission to this new role of actually fighting corruption in the modern age? They need training. They need an upgrade. That means there has to be a budget allocation. So whether that whole pledge for this fighting corruption agenda is actually reflected in the budget. And finally, I have a suggestion going forward for the committee is to also, it's really important that there is accountability, transparency when the budget is being implemented. So to introduce things like requiring the ministers to give quarterly statements on budget execution and all with reasons and justification for deviations, open up for public response and public feedback, because this kind of thing will help us to fix the problem before the whole issue is done and the next year budget comes around. Thank you very much.
Group then probably will be UNESCO.
Transparency International.
Sorry, Transparency International.
2026 අයවැය ලේඛනයේ සඳහන් කළ තියෙනවා ශුද්‍ර කුඩා හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ ව්‍යවසාය සඳහා රුපියල් බිලියන 25ක් වෙන් කරලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් සභාපතිතුමනි ඔබගේ අවධානය යොමු කරන්න ඕනේ තවමත් ශුද්‍ර මූල්‍ය ණය නියාමන අධිකාරියේ පනත පනත පිහිටවල නැහැ. ඒ වගේම ශුද්‍ර මූල්‍ය නියාමන අධිකාරිය පිහිටවල නැහැ. ඒ සඳහා අයවැය මුදල් වෙන් කිරීමක් නැහැ. මොකද මීට පෙර අවධානය යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා ශුද්‍ර මූල්‍ය සම්බන්ධ විශාල ගැටලු ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවධානය යොමු කරන්න කියලා සිහිපත් කරන්න කැමතියි. ඒත් එකම තමයි අල්ලස්සා දූෂණ කමිෂන් සභාවේ අයවැය වෙන් කිරීම පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡා කළා. නමුත් සභාපතිතුමනි රාජ්‍ය මූල්‍ය කළමනාකරන පනතේ 21 වෙනි වගන්තිය අනුව ස්වාධීන කමිෂන් සභා තමන්ගේ අයවැය මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශයේ අනුමැතිය යටතට ලක් වෙනවා. ඒතර ස්වාධීන කමිෂන් සභාවේ ස්වාධීනත්වය පිළිබඳ ගැටලුවක් ඇති වෙනවා. ඒත් එක්කම පසුගිය වර්ෂයට සාපේක්ෂව බලද්දී මේ වර්ෂයේ අල්ලස්සා දූෂණ කමිෂන් සභාවේ ප්‍රතිපාදන සැලකිය යුතු ප්‍රමාණයක් අප්පාද වී තිබෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ අල්ලස්සා දූෂණ කමිෂන් සභාවට විශේෂ බලතල රාශියක් සහ ක්‍රියාමාර්ග රාශියක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න තියෙනවා. ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපාදන අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒත් එක්කම මේ වර්ෂයේ පිහිට වූ අපරාධයෙන් උත්පාදිත දේපල පිළිබඳ පනතේ පනත පිළිබඳව අයවැය සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. නමුත් පනත නිසියාකාරයෙන් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න නම් පනතේ දේපල කළමනාකරණයේ මේ අධිකාරිය පිහිටවන්න ඕනේ. ඒත් එක්කම අරමුදල පිහිටවන්න ඕනේ. ඒ සඳහා මුදල් වෙන් කිරීමක් අයවැය තුළ අපි දක්නට නැහැ. ඒත් එක්කම තමයි අවසාන වශයෙන් විශේෂයෙන්ම ලංකාවේ ඉඩම් නැවත මැප් කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් සාකච්ඡා කළ තියෙනවා විශේෂයෙන්ම ආයෝජකයන්ට. නමුත් වර්තමානයේ වන විටත් උතුරු නැගෙනහිර ප්‍රදේශවල විශේෂයෙන්ම ත්‍රිකුණාමල වරාය ආශ්‍රිතව ජීවත් වෙන ජනතාවගේ ඉඩම් තවමත් ඒ ඉඩම් වෙන් කිරීම කටයුතු සිදු කරලා නැහැ. තවමත් ජනතාව මේ පිළිබඳව පීඩාවටපත් වෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම අපි අවධානය යොමු කරන්න කැමති බිම්සවිය වැඩසටහන ක්‍රියාත්මක කළා. මොකද දැන් වස 20ක් වෙනවා බිම්සවි වැඩසටහන ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න. නමුත් යම් හේතුන් නිසා බිම්සවි වැඩසටහන නතර වෙලා තියෙනවා. නිසා ඒ ප්‍රදේශ වලට අවධානය යොමු කරලා මේ ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්න කියලා අවධානය යොමු කරන්න කැමතියි.
Thank you. The last submission.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for the committee for the opportunity. On behalf of UNESCO, I just wanted to present the Social Dialogue for Peace and Crisis Prevention project that UNESCO is jointly implementing with ILO and UNFPA, also in partnership with the Ministry of Public Administration. So under this project, UNESCO's work will focus on engaging women, youth and other underrepresented informal sector workers, specifically from the agriculture, plantation and fisheries sectors with district and national level policymaking structures. So under this project, UNESCO will be working in Badulla, Gampaha and Batiklo districts. And to assist with the work, we've recently onboarded SEPA and also the Coalition for Inclusive Impact. Before I hand over to my colleague from SEPA, I wanted to sort of mention that we look forward to aligning on the government's priorities as highlighted in this budget on particularly on social protection with the project activities that will be happening on the ground. And like the Honorable Chair mentioned at the start, we also look forward to bringing these insights to the next meeting in the lead up to the next budget. We are hopeful that we'll have insights from the ground, especially from these sectors that we can bring in more systematically into the next conversation. So with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague from SEPA.
Thank you and good afternoon. Related to what Charu mentioned about the initiative, I would like to introduce that SEPA's contribution would be about how informal sector workers their needs would be more reflected in public policy making in this project. And in the process, we will be engaging with the district coordination committees, the members, honorable members here, we would like to engage in the future to identify how the issues of plantation workers and fisheries sector and also vegetable and paddy cultivation workers would be better reflected in public policy making. And at the national level, we would like to engage with the sectoral oversight committees and share these research findings and also advocate for mutually agreed research goals. In the future, I would like to, I look forward to consult some of you in the research process and also to engage with you in the DCC and sectoral oversight committee meetings. Thank you.
That concludes, I think, the submissions of those present here today. I think it was a fantastic opportunity for us also to listen to your concerns. I'm not going to take time summarizing all of what you said, but just so that we get a quick sort of refresher. Veritas issue was with transparency in the budget, and we made note of what you mentioned. This is something that we are working on, and it is a long-term process to get this office to engage with the Treasury to get those numbers out. And we have now established a fairly close working relationship. And hopefully it will get better. Now, a question that was asked by Justice for All, we just checked how much allocation had been made for the Parliamentary Budget Office, which is critical in this exercise. And I'm very deeply disappointed to understand it's only 3 million rupees have been allocated for capital and 8 million rupees for recurrent. So obviously that's not going to work. So we will have to protest and make sure that this money is increased to a sufficient level so that this transparency can be sort of forced out of the government agencies through the committee on, Parliamentary Budget Committee, which it is supposed to do. So thanks for that question, and we will look into that. Aruta's issue about phasing out para-tariffs, this is something I think the government will have to deal with. Honorable Minister is concerned about it, I'm sure very much. The issue was also raised by others as to whether the cess and the PAL would be phased out in the 3 to 5 years. Let me just, yeah.
No, just to add that, I think the concern about the revenue, it will be looked at. So basically the 4-tier tariffs will be used to ensure that we don't have a revenue shortfall. So it will be paced out in a way that there's no impact on the overall tax revenue. I think by April, the entire feasibility should be done by the ministry itself before we implement anything.
April next year? Yeah. Yeah. Because I think...
We also asked for the analysis, right?
Yeah. Because both need to happen at the same time. You know, there is a revenue protection order, Honorable Minister, presented in 2023. So on the revenue protection order, it protects the revenue. So it is now up to the government to ensure that the phasing out of the PAL and cess is implemented. On your subsidies, the workers' wages, we'll raise this, and this has been raised in the House as well, in terms of whether, and that's an interesting question that Aruta has, brought out, whether using public funds to subsidize workers' wages in private companies. This is a question that is being asked. So, but we made that point, and I think we can discuss that.
Just to give a very simple answer from the government perspective, and this number one, this issue was not sorted before. It was under discussion for many years, but nothing happened. What we really understand is some of the regional plantation companies misused the assets. They did not replant, they did not improve their business, they did not have the ability to pay a sufficient wage to their workers, and we already know 5 or 6 of these RPCs are in the position of paying. But since it's been carteled as a association, this is not happening. So basically we've negotiated down that how we could do it without impacting the industry, because tea is a very important industry for exports, and how do we work with these RPCs in the future to help them improve, or if they are not improving, what the government can do, because what our end goal is to have a sustainable business that also pays this thing. So in terms of the 25-day, that is not the what was mentioned in the budget speech would have given a different view. So if somebody even goes for 15 days, that person will get 200 per.
It's a daily payment.
it's a daily payment. So you don't have to necessarily cover 25 days to get it. And mostly the who will get it is basically on the formal side. So because what these companies are claiming is if they add another portion to it, it will also claim EPF and ETF. So the 200 that will be added by the companies, it will attract EPF and ETF. And the ones that the government will give as an allowance will not attract EPF and ETF. So these are agreements that have been reached at a discussion. So how it's going to get implemented will be, we have to see how it works out on a practical sense. So that's where I can give some input.
The alternative to that is to actually increase the minimum wages through a law, which the industry, I think, is very much opposed to. So you have to...
Yeah, it's a sensitive thing, but have to be dealt with in a careful way. We can't burden the industry as well as we have to save the workers.
Yeah, so we will, in committee, we will make sure that we raise this and sort of discuss it and perhaps update you on update you on the progress. Then Center for a Smart Future is about social protection and about urban poor, school meal programs, nutritional program. And you raised a valid point about the urban regeneration program and the amount of money that has been spent thus far. I'm actually quite taken aback by the numbers that you mentioned since 2010. We know, particularly because both of us are from the same electorate, there is an abandoned building that started in 2019 through an AIIB funding in Arunodaya. But then I don't think that the loan was actually utilized fully. So when you say that $200 million loan was taken by AIIB, I don't know whether that is correct.
To my knowledge, Honorable Chair, the loan is been extended for 2 years. So the period was supposed to finish in 2025 and it will now end in 2027 December. Also, some of the loan was repurposed for COVID. Due to COVID, it was repurposed for the Health Ministry. But a great portion of the loan, I think, has been repurposed.
Yeah, so we will go into that whole thing because, like you said, if 20 billion has been allocated for urban development and 15 billion is for one project, and which you are saying has financial problems.
It's not one project. It's not one project. It's a series
of... This is basically to restart these abandoned projects. So there, I'm pretty sure there's a debt funding also, or some agency funding is also coming through. What the government wants to do is to fast track the stalled projects.
Yeah, these are not projects that we have designed.
Yeah.
These are all halfway done projects.
These are halfway done.
7 or 8 projects.
Yeah.
And also to agree to the fact that you mentioned that the historic resettlements have been absolutely, it's not fit the purpose. People have lost their communal thing, and also they have got into a worse situation of that. So the new projects going to come up will ensure that they are not high-rise as much as they do, but also...
More than the high-rise, I think the relocation plans have to be well crafted.
So anyway, what I'm trying to say is the current allocation for this 15 billion is to restart what has happened. But it's a good debate to have how sustainable things can be in future.
Yeah, because actually there is something called National Involuntary Resettlement Plan, but it is not law, and we've been trying to make it law for the last 15 years or so.
I don't think we should make the current plan any law. Huh? The current plan for resettlement is actually not a...
No, I think the proposal you mentioned is the right proposal, which is the current government's policy, because when you kind of move people, you need to use the excess space for a commercial purpose and reuse that commercial value to really building this living area in the same area. So I think this is...
So that is the existing policy.
It hasn't come
through. But it has not happened.
No, I mean, if you look at that Tata housing and all, you know,
there are
oils
problems
near
with
that
Cinnamon
Life, that thing, that ugly looking thing that they built half.
Metro, that's called the Metro.
I don't know what it is called. Right, I mean, those got started, but I don't know how successful they have been.
No, the relocation is not very smooth. And what I
Yes,
think she's raising is
and
that
she's right. At gunpoint, some people were moved, and we went to court. I recall very well. But we take your point, and this is not the time to go into the details of this, but we will certainly bring it up. Then on Celine Foundation, on the VAT matter, I don't know. He is very much the SME czar, so we better talk to him and see what he has in his mind. But something that that has been brought up is a standard for reusable sanitary products. I'm aware of the matter that some companies were not invited to bid because there was no national standard. And this national standard has been getting delayed and delayed.
Yeah.
And I think you are referring to that, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yes,
this is
I am.
something, please note, Secretariat, that we should push and finalize.
Because we're ready. We've got the tests and we've got the results. We're ready. We just need this to be pushed through the standards for
Yeah,
reusable
standards are
pads to
going
be in the market in a
rounds
safe
and
manner.
rounds.
Yes.
So I think you're right. I think two concerns raised. We are very concerned about the impact on the SME side. But at the same time, VAT expanding the tax net is essential because most of the tax leakage is not happening from manufacturing, it's mostly happening from trade. So I think this is something we will have to debate and see how we can ensure that the producers are safeguarded at that level. And then the other piece is formalizing these crafts also is a requirement from the ministry side, but a valid concern. And on the alternatives for alternative reusable products is something that's going to get attention at different level. Now this has been discussed at various forums, and I think there will be a solution for the country, and from Ministry of Industry's perspective we are pushing as well.
And then on Lanesia's suggestions on social protection and empowerment programs and cash transfers have been the bulk, whereas you say the Prajashakti program, is that what you said? The other way around?
What she said is it's focused on the cash transfers,
cash transfer,
but
not on
the
Empowerment.
development side of
Yeah,
it.
on the
Not the
Prajashakti and
empowerment,
all.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there is
So-
like a 25 billion
there
allocation.
is a new program, Prajashakti, which is 25 billion for
Yes, I
specifically
think-
that purpose.
No, I think that 25 billion is for the structure, but what really is there is that there are so many programs in disconnection. So there is treasury training programs, SME programs, all that. They are not concentrated into this poverty elevation. So that is what this new program will do. So I think as people who are also concerned and having this knowledge, this is happening at a divisional secretariat level. So the units that will be built for Prajashakti is the team who's responsible for elevation. So our entire goal, currently we have people who should take Astasuma and not take Astasuma. Now even this 6 last year we try to get these Astasuma receiving families to a development program. There is no commitment on the other side now. You just get the cash transfer, they don't have to do anything. So there's a slight change in how the orientation is, and also to connect all the government loans and programs and trainings and capacity building and also foreign jobs and all that to this funnel. So I think there's a collective effort in the strategy, but that strategy will be cleared out. But a very good observation, it has not worked.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just ask one thing? Is it linked to the empowerment program that is done by the Department of Samurdhi?
Yes. So Samurdhi workforce is the one who are leading this.
Right.
Now this year they have given each division to empower 1,000 families. But the support that given to this Samurdhi team is very low. So even in Kotecha, we have only got about 200 families out of 2,000 who has agreed to get on board. So now we have to put more effort, and now this new unit has a Samurdhi Niladhari development officer. the SME officer, like the entrepreneurship officer, Grama Niladhari, and all 5 government officials will work in one group in a village for this program. I hope it will work.
Right. And then generations, digitalization must be inclusive. I think it's really important what you mentioned, that if everything is going to be digital, there is no non-digital access then, right? Because it will be digital. And if in the digital access you are somehow not part of that, then you have no digital and no non-digital also. So I think it's a very valid point to ensure that the access is guaranteed to everybody. And also you mentioned about the Data Protection Authority. I mean, that's a serious matter. And as she mentioned, if you're going to issue the first, I don't think it's a card, because I guess, you just, number, unique ID, is by third quarter 26, then we'll have to have the not just the authority, but the regulations, like you very correctly said, prescribes the processing of special data. So if it prescribes the processing of special data, then to prescribe it, that regulation must be then made, has to be legislated. So I don't think that has happened. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that area, and we appreciate your concern.
I think, shall I recommend one thing? Now, since these observations are coming through looking at the budget, we have subcommittees for each of these ministries. So as from our committee, we can, pass it for a detailed discussion.
We will do that. We'll make a report. I've noted all the points, and then we will make a short report, and we will send it to the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance.
And Chair, just one more thing, because the law also says you have to conduct an impact assessment, which is crucial. It has not been done, and even the procedure for impact assessment is to be given by the authority. So no authority, no procedure, no impact assessment. But we are giving timelines.
The authority
is not fully functioning.
Passed, not appointed.
Yes, exactly. So without the authority,
agree.
Actually,
it was about 2 months ago.
It's actually worse then, because we have a law. We are doing something against the law.
No, actually, we had Mr. Arjuna Herath here in this committee the previous government. He was the chairman of the Data Protection Authority. Wasn't he? I think so. I think
there's no Director General and other critical officers.
So that gentleman was transferred to the Board of Investment, and I think somebody else.
So there was a new appointment, and he was supposed to get 14 or 20 head count, because I'm on the other committee as well. I remember this. So we'll follow this up.
In fact, I saw in today's newspapers advertisement for DG of the DPA. So it has to move. And also another thing that Dr. Sanjana Hattotua has been talking about is that there is no communication on this, honorable members of government, in Sinhala or Tamil. He said that there is not a single piece of literature on the digitalization program, either in Sinhala or in Tamil. So you might want to bring it to the attention of those people
All
concerned.
government policy is usually done in Sinhala and
Tamil. So he said that in this there's not a single piece of the digitalization program, the entire digitalization program. In fact, I ran out of time during my speech. I was going to ask for a parliamentary select committee to ensure, because this is such an important project that as a nation we are going towards, that we must make sure that this is done right. So because everybody, all 225 members are in support of this program. So just make sure that, we get this right. So this is something I wanted to mention.
And Chair, there's fund allocated to have data centers in Sri Lanka. So we are doing things in the reverse order. For us to have data centers, it's a critical matter. We are going to be held responsible for so much of data of not only citizens.
Data centers won't come without these laws, don't worry about it.
No, so we can't, if we don't have a local regulation, we don't know what the extent of the exposure is.
No, actually, I'll tell you what happened, because it happened in this committee, this inquiry into the online visa matter. There was a massive data breach, and it became global news. And, like millions of, I can't recall, large number of individual data was leaked out. And then that is when we had the chairman of the Data Protection Authority, and we told him to immediately, look into it and ensure that PricewaterhouseCoopers or somebody was going to do an audit. But the audit report that came out subsequently about a month ago, 2 weeks ago, I didn't see any reference to that. So it did happen.
No, but I think the budget speech also refers to the regulatory framework of having data centers in Sri Lanka. So I think
Having data centers.
Let's have these discussions with the relevant ministries, because budget speech doesn't cover.
No, this is very good, because I'm just going through the last 2 points also here, so that we will prepare a note based on this, so that there is some follow-up to this meeting. Yes, absolutely. And then finally it was Advocata which also, spoke about the para-tariff matter, the VAT threshold, the positive impacts of it. In fact, I forgot to mention, got a note from Mr. Dharnath Fernando that he and Mr. Muntasar Jafarji were both expected to come, but they were overseas and they were unable to attend. Then Justice for All, this is very good about the effectiveness of expenditure. In fact, this committee, I want to mention to the members, must find a way, at least quarterly, to be able to, look at the expenditure, monitor this. This committee has that responsibility. So perhaps we can create some subcommittees, and look into the actual implementation. So it's an important point that Parliament oversight must undertake, and we strive to do that this year. And a lot of good things about civil society, being included in public participation monitoring, and public spending, and citizen consultation committees. I think this itself is in that direction, that we are consulting citizens, being represented by various civil society organizations. Perhaps we could expand it at some point in time and be able to listen to you as we move forward. Justice to all. And then you mentioned the Parliamentary Budget Office. Honourable members, we must bring this up. But that is this is our back office that needs to be structured. Funds will have to be allocated for that. Then Transparency International ශුද්‍ර මූල්‍ය නානියාමන අධිකාරී පනත සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඔබතුමී ගෙනාපු මේ යෝජනාව හරියට හරි. ඒ අත වශයෙන්ම එකපාරක් ඒ යෝජනාව ගෙනාවා මේ ඩ්‍රාෆ්ට් එකක් හැටියට. හැබැයි ඒ ඩ්‍රාෆ්ට් එකට අලුත් ඩ්‍රාෆ්ට් එකක් දැන් ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා කියලා අපිට රජය මේ කියලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් අපි බලන් ඉන්නවා මේ ඒ නියාමන අධිකාරියේ පනත ඉදිරිපත් කරනහන් ඒක මෙතනට ගේන්න කොහොමත් අපේ මුදල් කමිටුවට. ගිය පාර අපි අත වශයෙන්ම මේ වගේ සාකච්ඡාවක් නිසා තමයි ඒක හකුලා ගන්න සිද්ධ වුණේ රජයට. මොකද එතෙන්දී ඉදිරිපත් වෙච්ච අදහස් වලින් අපිට තේරුම් ගියා, රජයටත් තේරුම් ගියා 70%ක් විතර නියාමනයේ විය යුතු ආයතන නියාමනයේ උනේ නැහැ ඒ පනතේ. ඒක තමයි මූලිකම ගැටලුව වුණේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා වුන් කිව්වා ඒ සියලුම ආයතන නියාමන ආකාරයට ඒ දැල පුළුල් කරනවා කියලා. ඉතින් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඒක ඉදිරිපත් කරයි කියලා. අපි මේක ඉදිරියට අරගෙන යන්න අපි නෝට් කරගත්තා. Then the final thing was with the UNESCO social. I really didn't catch that name of your project. Social
dialogue for peace and crisis prevention.
Social dialogue for
peace and crisis prevention.
Peace and crisis creation. Crisis, not creation. Crisis prevention, sorry. I took down much notes, but I missed that one. Right. And you said, you're working in 3 districts, and whatever support that we can assist, with, let us know. And you're working with SEPA, and noted your concern on agriculture workers and sectoral oversight committees that you want to participate in. So, that is what it is. Unless members have issues to raise with, or you have some issues you want to raise, we have just a couple of minutes. We need to adjourn.
I'd just like to thank the chair and the committee on behalf of CII and the organizations present today. We really appreciate the opportunity to present recommendations and reflections on the budget 2026. And your points on engaging at an earlier stage of the budget is well noted, and we look forward to doing that next year. But we also look forward to continued engagement on the issues that were just raised. And also look forward to you referring us to the relevant committees and ministries as mentioned. Once again, thanks so much for the opportunity, and we really appreciate the committee level oversight on these matters, and maybe look forward to some of these suggestions being incorporated into this budget even at committee stage. Thanks very much again.
Thank you. Right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.